The rhythmic sweep of the beacon had been my only companion for months, a steady pulse in the vast, indifferent ocean. I was Elias Thorne, keeper of the Blackwater Ridge Lighthouse, a solitary sentinel guarding treacherous shoals. I dismissed it as a fishing boat, perhaps, or a trick of the light from the setting sun. It would emerge precisely at dusk, a tiny, insistent pulse, and vanish with the first hint of dawn. It wasn't the steady glow of a ship's lantern nor the frantic SOS of distress. It was different. It seemed to respond to my light, almost like a mirror, albeit a distorted one. This was something else. The lighthouse, my sanctuary, suddenly felt like a cage. When my beacon swept past its position, the flicker would intensify, a brief, sharp flare before dimming again. My nights became consumed by it. I started seeing the light even when it wasn't there. A phantom afterimage burned into my retinas. It was brighter than anything I'd seen before, a piercing, almost painful gleam. And this time, there was no mistaking the pattern. I was miles from shore, with no immediate way to contact the mainland. I began to hear faint, scratching sounds from the lower levels of the lighthouse, like something dragging itself across stone. Not the light, but something in the water near the base of the lighthouse. It was pulsating with an erratic, frantic rhythm, faster and faster, like a dying heart, and it was closer, much closer. I could feel the heat emanating from it, a searing, unnatural warmth against the chill of the lantern room. A shape vaguely humanoid, but too tall, too gaunt, its movements unnatural. Each scrape was a hammer blow to my sanity. I could smell the ocean, but mixed with something else, something metallic and rotten. It seemed to be reaching, beckoning towards the light, towards me. The scratching stopped just below the trapdoor leading into the lantern room. The only light was the pulsing, alien glow from the sea, now directly below the lantern room, casting long, grotesque shadows on the walls. A slow, wet thump as if something had landed heavily on the floor just outside the door. And through the narrow crack, a single, pale, elongated finger, glistening with seawater, slowly, deliberately began to slide. It pointed directly at me, and a ragged, wheezing breath, far too loud in the sudden, deafening silence. A guttural, inhuman sound seemed to vibrate through the very stone of the lighthouse, a sound that wasn't heard, but felt. It was so close I could almost touch it. The whispers were no longer in my dreams. They were here, swirling around me, a chorus of voices rising from the light, all chanting my name. Elias, Elias, come to the light. My heart hammered against my ribs. I clutched the cold metal railing, my knuckles white. Who or what was out there? And how did it know my light's sequence? It was a distorted, drawn-out rhythm, mimicking the distinctive too short, one long flash of the Blackwater Ridge Lighthouse beacon. My beacon, it was mocking me, but the light grew bolder. It started to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed, always maintaining that unsettling distance. It was circling the lighthouse, a silent, predatory eye. But now, every night, I watch the horizon. I watch for the light that calls my name, knowing it might be the last thing I ever see. And I listen, always listen, for the sound of something dragging itself up the winding stairs. Sleep offered no escape. The rhythmic pulse of the distant light invaded my dreams, transforming into a whispering voice that seemed to be speaking my name. Elias, Elias. But it was too consistent, too deliberate for a random vessel. Rain lashed against the structure, and the waves below roared like hungry beasts. Through the storm, the light remained, surprisingly steadfast. But tonight, it wasn't just flickering. It was calling. And it was always there, just beyond the reach of my own powerful beam, a shy, curious eye peeking from the gloom. The isolation was a part of the job, a quiet agreement I'd made with the sea. Most nights, the only sounds were the mournful cry of gulls, the crash of waves against the rocks, and the comforting hum of the Fresnel lens. Then came the flicker. It was subtle at first, a faint pinprick of light far out where the sea met the bruised twilight sky. Days bled into weeks. The flicker remained, becoming a constant in my isolated world. I started timing it, charting its appearance. One particularly stormy night, the wind howled like a banshee around the lighthouse, rattling the thick glass of the lantern room. I watched, mesmerized and increasingly unnerved, as the distant light began to spell out a sequence. ... pause, ... pause. It wasn't Morse code I recognized, but the pattern was undeniable. It was a message directed solely at me. A chill colder than the biting sea wind snaked its way up my spine. I tried to rationalize it. Rogue reflections, a strange atmospheric phenomenon. But deep down I knew. The message continued, repeating variations of the same unnerving sequence. One evening, as twilight bled into night, the distant light pulsed with an unprecedented intensity. Panic, cold and suffocating, began to set in. I tried to ignore it, to focus on my duties, to convince myself it was a hallucination brought on by isolation. The air in the lantern room grew heavy, thick with an unseen presence. One morning, just before dawn, I saw it. That night, the light returned, but this time it wasn't just flickering. Then the power flickered. My own beacon sputtered, coughed, and died. Darkness. Absolute, terrifying darkness. I heard the scraping again, closer now, ascending, the sound of something heavy, wet and utterly wrong dragging itself up the spiral staircase. The light outside intensified, burning through the thick glass, bathing the room in an unnatural, sickly green glow. I stumbled backward, tripping over something unseen, my breath catching in my throat. Then came a sound that froze my blood. The light outside pulsed one final blinding time, so bright it burned an afterimage into my eyes. When my vision cleared, it was gone, but the light inside the lantern room remained. A faint, greenish glow now emanated from the base of the trapdoor. I haven't slept since. The Blackwater Ridge Lighthouse still stands, its beacon once again cutting through the night.